This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Some dealers in the U.S. are taking advantage of the chip shortage and tight inventory to jack up prices of new cars by thousands of dollars. And not only are consumers mad, so are the car companies. Last week, Ford shot off a letter to dealers telling them to cut it out, and now it's General Motors' turn. Steve Carlisle, the president of GM North America, sent a letter to dealers warning them not to raise prices above the MSRP, and he told them not to work with brokers. He pointedly warned them about the upcoming Corvette Z06, Silverado EV, Hummer EVs, Sierra EV, and the Cadillac Lyriq. GM will not allocate vehicles to dealers if they don't comply. On Autoline After Hours last week, Tim Jackson, the head of the Colorado Automobile Dealers Association, was critical of dealers who engaged in this type of practice. Thankfully, he said, most dealers are not doing this. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety isn't happy with partially automated driver assistance systems. It says automakers are overselling the technology and criticizes drivers who deliberately misuse it. And it says that there's no evidence that it makes driving safer. So it's creating a new ratings program for ADAS, and like its other safety ratings, it will rate them as good, acceptable, marginal, or poor. To earn a good rating, the system must monitor the driver's eyes and hand position, use multiple types of warnings to get the driver's attention, and have a number of other emergency procedures if the driver doesn't meet those conditions. The IIHS says none of the current ADAS systems on the market meet its requirements, and it plans to come out with its first ratings sometime this year. Consumer Reports will also begin awarding points for partially automated systems, but only if they have adequate monitoring systems. It will factor in the IIHS ratings once they're available. Currently, only GM Super Cruise and Ford's Blue Cruise comply with Consumer Reports. A few months back, Renault announced plans to convert a factory in Spain to refurbish and recondition used vehicles, and now Stellantis is doing the same thing. It partnered with a company called Stimcar to recondition used cars in France and plans to expand the service throughout Europe. They're aiming to sell 100,000 used vehicles a year. And this makes us wonder, could refurbished used cars become the new entry-level cars for automakers? By refurbishing used cars, the factory makes money, dealers make money, and the customer gets a good car at a lower price.
Mobility is becoming electric, connected, and autonomous, just like the manufacturing world. But will always be one thing: a reliable partner for our customers.
General Motors sees lots of opportunity for its Hydrotech fuel cells that goes well beyond trucks and cars. It's coming out with mobile fuel cell power generators that can be used for 3 applications. First is the mobile power generator, which can provide fast charging for EVs on the go. GM will demonstrate it in the middle of the year. Then there's a palletized version for military use. The U.S. Army is testing it to power heavy-duty military equipment and camps. It's about the same size as a 60-kilowatt diesel generator, but produces 70% more power. The third application is a fast DC charger for EVs that can be installed at retail gas stations without having to hook up to the grid. It can power up to 4 vehicles at a time, starting at 150 kilowatts, and fully charge them in 20 minutes. It can charge more than 100 EVs before it needs to be refueled with hydrogen. A company named Renewable Innovations plans to install 500 M-Power stations across the country by the end of 2025. Each of the Hydrotech generators outputs range from 60 to 600 kilowatts. A couple of the biggest names in camping are going electric. First, let's start with Airstream, which partnered with Thor Industries to develop the E-Stream. Based on Thor's exclusive chassis, it features an all-electric drivetrain that can be used to assist the tow vehicle's fuel economy and/or range, or guide the camper into place via a remote control. The battery of the system can also be used to power the accessories. And if you ever wondered how a BEV could make a camping trip without depleting battery range too fast while towing, this could be the answer. And now we shift to Winnebago, who revealed the eRV concept. It's based on a Ford Transit van and features an electrical system from Lightning E-Motors. That system includes an 86 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which returns up to 125 miles or 201 kilometers of range. But that battery also powers all the appliances, and the range factors in the water heater, AC, cooktop, and fridge. Winnebago says the eRV is meant to be its first offering in the electric camper space, but didn't say when it might come out. Full-size pickups always have a separate cab and bed to allow for torsional bending, but that's not the case with the Chevrolet Silverado EV. Its giant battery pack adds so much structural rigidity that they don't need a separate body and bed. That allowed for a midgate, a pass-through opening between the cab and the bed. With the midgate open, you get 9 feet of length to store things, and you get 10 feet or 3 meters with the tailgate down. There's a lot of fascinating features on that truck, and we'll be going through them on Autoline After Hours this afternoon, when our special guest will be Nicole Kratz, the chief engineer of the Silverado. So join John and Gary and Joanne Muller from Axios to learn about GM's first full-size electric pickup.
We want to know what drives your testing. OTA, connected car, diagnostics, remote testing. Intrepid Control Systems is here to help you work from anywhere. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
We know some of our American viewers miss Ford's passenger cars, and here's what would have been the next generation Fusion, which is sold in Europe and China as the Mondeo. The new model, which debuts Ford's new design language for China, was created in collaboration with the new China Design Center in Shanghai. In addition to being wider and longer than the previous model, it features a number of design elements made with Chinese consumers in mind, including the flush-mounted door handles, touch-sensitive logo that opens the rear trunk, and an animated lighting display that activates as the driver approaches. The all-new Mondeo will be built by Chang'an Ford, and deliveries to Chinese customers start later this year. Every automotive enthusiast knows about the Bonneville salt flats in Utah. They've been used for speed record runs for over 100 years, thanks to miles and miles of smooth, flat salt beds, which are the remains of an ancient lake bed. But mining companies have been pumping out salt for decades to mine for potash, which is used in fertilizer. And that mining is destroying the flats. They're about 1/3 their former size and continue to shrink. So SEMA, the Specialty Equipment Market Association, is supporting an effort called Restore Bonneville to rebuild what's been destroyed. This year alone, they're going to pump 500,000 tons of salt back onto the flats. The federal government is paying for the restoration, and so is the state of Utah. Corporations and the land speed racing community are kicking in, and you can too. You can make a contribution at www.savethesalt.org, and your contribution is tax deductible. Of course, some people just want to go as fast as they can out on the open road, and here's a guy who drove his Bugatti Chiron to 414 kilometers an hour on the Autobahn in Germany. That's 257 miles an hour. The driver is a Czech millionaire who just wanted to see his car stretch its legs. And even though he drove on a part of the Autobahn where there is no speed limit, the German authorities were not amused. And the Green Party wants to impose a national speed limit of 130 kilometers an hour, or about 80 miles an hour. But that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for joining us.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering, boost your game. And by Scheffler, we pioneer motion.